right, the big trade of the day, though. It is Ben Simmons heading to Brooklyn and James Harden headed to Philadelphia.
Yes.
What more can you tell me?
Let's talk about Ben Simmons, because a lot of the Ben Simmons narrative leaving Philly has been centered upon his weaknesses, especially after that Game 7 versus the Hawks. You want to forget about that. But it is also true that Ben is 25 years old. He's 6'11", and he's a point guard, a 3-time All-Star, 2-time All-Defensive first-team member. If he can get back to that pedigree, this is what Brooklyn Nets, this is what they'll be getting. So here's my tape. You saw everything that he brings right here. The fact that he was able to close out late, but more importantly, on both ends, you've got a guy that gives you 8 rebounds a game. You've got a guy that can also get you 8 assists per game. But more importantly, defensively, this is a team that is 20th in defensive rating. They just got a big upgrade on that end of the floor.
And that's what we've been talking about, Janae. We've been discussing whether or not this makes the Sixers the favorite or whether or not this makes the Brooklyn Nets the favorite, depending on who you ask. We've gotten a couple of different answers. I do, though, welcoming back our Kendrick Perkins, want to chat with the one and only Mike Wilbon about his reaction to all of this that's been happening, because this is huge news. Hi, Mike Wilbon, and also we have Monica McNutt with us. So, Wilbon, what's your reaction to this trade?
Well, I mean, obviously it's a wow and a head spinner, and you immediately start to figure out whether Philly or Brooklyn has an advantage now in what is a short track season. I mean, it's a sprint when you come out of the break and you got like 21, 22 games left for a lot of teams. It seems to me that it expands Brooklyn's window. That the window was this year. Keep those guys, those 3 guys together if you could. Get them on the court healthy. We see how few games they played. Their window is now expanded, I mean, for multiple years. I don't know that Philadelphia can say that, but it seems that Philadelphia has really put a lot of emphasis on right now. I mean, when you put Harden out there with a guy that I would vote for, and I do have a vote, I mean, I would vote for Embiid today for MVP. That might change in a week. It might change in 3 or 4 games. But Embiid right now, and you put the 2 of them out there. If James Harden is actually healthy, right? If disinterest was his only issue, he's going to be engaged now, and he and Embiid would seem to me to be in the catbird seat now. Now, is Harden healthy? I mean, you know, maybe Richard and Perk have some insight here is into his health, this hamstring issue, which can obviously linger. But if James Harden can be the guy we saw last year, who for a while was MVP of the league, playing essentially point guard, then I think, I'm not going to say the favorites. I do have Milwaukee and I have Miami, because those teams are set. They don't have to figure each other out. I mean, I was with the Heat guys the other day. They feel great about their situation. We know Milwaukee does. But if we narrow this down to Philadelphia and Brooklyn, Philadelphia did great for the moment. And James Harden, we got to see, is it just being engaged that was James Harden's problem recently, the last week or so in Brooklyn, or is health an issue that would bring another dynamic into play?
Perk, what do you think?
Well, I think it had everything with him being engaged. And I think, look, we see what James Harden do when he's under Daryl Morey. It's that bond, that relationship. And I'm telling you, you know who else is going to be motivated, who's already motivated? Joel Embiid, as if he needs any more motivation. Like, to get a player like that and then Joel, like, can y'all imagine if Joel Embiid takes his game to another level? Like, is it another level he can even take his game to? He has 0 offensive flaws. He's a hell of a defender. He looks slim. And then all of a sudden you get a James Harden. You still got wing defenders. You still got Tobias Harris. You still got all these things. And this is the thing that makes the Philadelphia 76ers so great. I was with Doc Rivers, right, when we won it. Doc Rivers is a hell of a basketball coach when he's coaching offense. Guess who Rivers just got back? Coach Yeager, right? And I'm glad he did, because he was battling the sickness. He's the defensive coach. You know what he did with Memphis when it was Grind City with Tony Allen. So they work as a combination like how Doc and Tibbs used to do. So now I'm looking at this 76ers team, and I'm like, Joel Embiid motivated? He was already motivated?
He had to be frustrated. He had to be frustrated, Perk, in these recent weeks with Ben Simmons just out, no compensation for him. He's playing at the MVP level, and yet there were some critical games the Sixers lost in there, even though they moved back up in the Eastern Conference. He's got to be relieved that he's now got this kind of a Hall of Fame tag team partner. If he's engaged. And I think we all believe that he certainly will be now in terms of James Harden.
Absolutely. And Mike Wilbon, as is shown on our screen right now, Adrian Wojnarowski is reporting something that we also heard from Ramona Shelburne at the top of our show, which is Ben Simmons has already talked to Kevin Durant, but also he's talked to Sean Marks. And Rich Paul tells ESPN that Simmons is eager to join the Nets and ramp up. Quote, we've got work to do to get him back to play, but it's a step in the right direction. That's according to our Adrian Wojnarowski. That is Rich Paul. Remember, that's Ben Simmons' agent, Shanae.
Yeah, and this is fascinating right here because a lot of people, again, I mentioned the weaknesses in Ben's game. We're taking a pick and roll that was, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid in Philly, now transporting that same pick and roll with Ben Simmons, and now his running mate is going to be Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. We talked earlier about that dribble handoff. What made that hard and difficult for Philly was Ben would roll in the half court after, setting a dribble handoff, and Joel Embiid would be in the paint. Tobias Harris would be in the mid, the short corner. Now he's doing that in Brooklyn, and he knows he can roll to the rim because he's largely going to be the big in the lineup. They want that versatility, that small ball, but really you've got the point guard that's 6'10", you've got KD that's a 7-footer, and you're doing dribble handoffs with Kyrie. That opens up the floor for Ben to be able to be productive as someone that wants to finish at the rim. And lastly, I'll say about Ben Simmons is that his number one asset to offense is the first 10 seconds. He grabs a rebound, he pushes a pace, and if he's not able to find somebody, you cross half court and you get into that pick and roll where he can roll and know that he's the number one option rolling.
Right.
That's going to lend well to his game.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.